If those reds are getting you mad, then it's time to get furious. Hey, how's it going, guys? And welcome to another review with RONIN 47R. Today we're taking a look at the Fury. And that's the American Tier 6 medium premium tank. And we're going to jump into the garage and take a look at this thing so that you can decide if this is the tank for you. So sit back, relax, and let's get this thing going. How's it going, friends? And welcome to my garage once again for the Fury tank, named after, of course, the movie in 2014 starring Brad Pitt and some other dudes. This is a review of the Fury tank, the American medium Tier 6 premium, the Fury, which for all intents and purposes, it really is an E8, and it just happens to have a name, not unlike a ship having a name. Side note, the gun in the front, the machine gun, is called a bow gun, so isn't it interesting that they're using nautical terms? But moving on. So folks, we're going to go ahead and do this review in a little different fashion. I'm going to do less time in the garage. I'm still going to get you all the data that you need, but I'm going to spend less time in the garage, and we are going to spend more time looking at some gameplay. While we're looking at some gameplay, I'll be giving you some information about the tank. What's really nice about this tank's review this time is that when you compare this tank to the closest thing, which is a non-premium tank, the E8, it is so similar. It really lends itself to this format. Now, if you guys like this format that I'm going to present to you shortly, then let me know. If you don't like it, let me know, because in the future reviews, gosh, I may be doing the same thing, maybe doing it different, maybe I'll be doing it both. So this channel is our channel, not my channel, so let me know what you think. All right, so here is a quick glance at the E8. It literally is the same thing, other than, of course, the visual, I don't know, fun bits such as the machine gun on the top and the sweet spent brass on the top. That is such a rad touch. All right, so let's go ahead and get started with doing a quick glance over of the information here in the garage, and then, like I said, I'll give you some hard, cold facts once we get going during some game replay. So if we were to take a look at the package, take my word for it, and I'll show it to you. But literally, this Sherman Fury gun package is exactly the same. Well, I shouldn't say gun package. The package here that contains the gun and the other four components here, modules, they're exactly the same as the M1A2 package for the E8. Everything is the same, even down to the Ford GAA engine, which we will come back to at a later time. Now, if I go ahead and do a quick glance here, you can see the different modules. Kind of fun. And like I said, it's so funny that I only have to show you really one tank because they are exactly the same. Okay, 0.1 difference, and we'll touch on that. And then last but not least, a quick glance at the armor as I swirl around here and you get an idea. One of the beauties of having a video technology review is that you can pause it, rewind it, study it at your leisure, instead of me spending several moments on one particular thing, which may or may not be of interest to everybody. So like I said, we're just doing a much briefer time in the garage and a lot more time out on the good old battlefield. Now, just to go ahead and keep me honest there, I will go ahead and bring over the 76 late, as they call that particular package, which is the same exact package as the Fury. So there you go. All the data is the same. All the handling is the same, except for literally just a handful of things, which I will go over in a short moment. So folks, if you can go ahead and see that I do have Sergeant Wardaddy move from the Fury tank. He is permanently living in the E8. I don't really use this non-premium tank. You can see that I currently have Eugene, which is my Tier 8 premium my Tier 8 medium American Pershing driver. So he's going to be kicking it here in the tank and showing us how it's run. Meanwhile, been kind of experimenting around lately with the Fury. I went ahead and put in the fancy pants consumables just for the fun of it, and it really doesn't cost you anything unless you use them. Cola, of course, you do get purchased for, or you do get charged for as you use it each game. But I come out ahead in the money situation, so I am good to go on that. And then as far as loadout's concerned, I go 34, 35, 2. Remember, this guy will be seeing a Tier 8. He's, like I said, just like the regular non-premium, so he's going to see the full matchmaking. With equipment, I go ahead and I run the rammer, the vents, and the V-stab because I am doing a lot more moving and then trying to shoot in a quicker fashion versus stationary and then just letting the GLD kick in. V-stab works a lot better for the way I use this tank. All right, folks, well, let's go ahead and jump into the games and start talking about this iconic tank. First thing we're going to do, where we start off with, is a baseline, and what I'm doing now is just showing you some footage from the gun handling of the E8. This is the non-premium, and the crew on this is very underdeveloped, not even 100%, so you know, you can kind of get an idea. And then we're going to go ahead and jump over to, from this game, we're going to jump over to some actual Fury games, and I challenge you to see if there is a difference between the way the two tanks handle. All right, let's go ahead and get started talking these stats. Let's start from top to bottom. So this is a tier 6. It does see up to, you know, tier 8, and the comparison between the two is exactly the same. They both see the same tiers. As far as cost is concerned, the E8 is 930,500 silver. The Fury costs 3,750 gold. The tonnage, there's two aspects. There's how much the tank weighs, and then there's the load limit. And with the E8, the load limit is 34.5 tons. The Fury has a higher load limit of 38 tons. And when it comes to hit points, the E8 has 750 hit points. The Fury has 774. So the Fury has 24 points more of health. Another difference between these two tanks is that the hull traverse on the E8 is 40 degrees per second. The Fury's hull traverse is 44 degrees per second. The next difference that I identified was that the turret armor for the E8 is 76 in the front, 51 on the sides, 51 in the rear. Now on the Fury, there is 64 millimeters of armor on the front, 64 on the side, and 64 in the rear. So what they've done is they've redistributed, plus a little bit more, but they've redistributed the armor and taken some from the front, added to the sides and the rear. But when you add up all of the armor that is designated to the turret, there's 178 millimeters of armor all the way around of an E8, but there is 192 millimeters of armor all the way around on a Fury. So one could argue that the turret is better for the Fury when it comes to all around, but of course the E8 has better armor if you were just talking about the front. Now, the E8 is a non-premium, therefore there is no silver earning bonus. There is no XP earning bonus. The Fury is a premium, so by default, of course, there is some type of bonus, and that bonus for silver is 50%, and the XP is 35%. Meanwhile, as I'm giving you some more stats, just kind of pointing out that the couple games I'm sharing with you is the Fury going up against different tiers. You know, sometimes you'll go up to just 6s, or you'll be top tier. And then of course I do have a game as well where you're the bottom tier. It's a tier 8. And that was actually the best game, or most enjoyable game that I had in this series. All right, so to continue on with the differences in summary, basically you have weight load limit that goes to the Fury, hit points that goes to the Fury, hull traverse that goes to the Fury, overall turret armor that goes to the Fury, frontal turret armor which goes to the E8, silver experience, and repair cost benefits go to the Fury. And that concludes the differences. Now we just need to talk about the similarities because they're both the same stats. All right, so now taking a look at the similarities between these tanks, you know, the overall breakdown of the characteristics of the tanks when you're in the garage on the right-hand side is considered, you know, firepower, which is 25, survivability, which is 27, mobility 27, concealment 40, spotting 73. When it comes to looking at the E8, the EZ8, all the stats are the same, so firepower 25, but survivability is now 26, mobility is 27, concealment is 40, and spotting is 73. And as I mentioned before, continuing on with the similarities, the gun handling and the packages, everything, the modules are all the same. So when it comes to these tanks, you know, you have for the engine, you have a Ford GAA, and that has 520 horsepower. The gun module is the 76mm gun M1A2, which is the top package for the 76mm for the E8, and it's the only package that you have to choose from when it comes to the Fury. Now, there are 18.18 rounds per minute. The penetration for this type of gun with this type of ammo is the 128 for penetration with a 115 damage. The AP premium rounds is 177 penetration at 115 damage, and the HE rounds are 38 penetration with 185 damage. The aim time for this gun is 2.30, and the accuracy is 0.40, so you're not really expecting to be quite the sniper. Meanwhile, the treads is the NVSST-80, and the turret is the D51080, and the traverse speed for the turret is 39 degrees per second, and the view range default without any equipment or skills to enhance is 370 meters. Lastly, the signal range is the SCR 506, and that has a signal range of 615 meters. Now, this is a pretty iconic tank, and this tank was only offered for sale one time before January 16th, 2017, and the reason because of that was that there was a contract, as the tank is owned by Sony Pictures. The contract was for 1 year, and after that 1 year was over, everyone thought that the tank was not going to be offered again. I'm talking about Wargaming. The business development side has been in negotiations, and they were able to procure a contract for 1 more year. So now it is being brought back out, and it's being offered on Xbox console, PlayStation, Blitz, the PC. So they have 1 year to offer this tank again. Now, will it be offered after this 1 year contract is up ever again? I am not sure, but you know, money talks. Now, when it comes to playing the tank, what I find works best for this tank is to be a supportive role. Obviously, it's going to depend upon your matchmaking. It's going to depend upon what your team is doing. All things being equal, you've, I'm sure, seen that sometimes teams will do very aggressive types of plays, while other teams will be very defensive, so on and so forth. So you have to plan your strategies accordingly. What works best with this? Let me start around. What does not work best with this tank is it is not a brawling tank. Even at a top tier, running up against heavies especially, it can be a challenge. It can be penned. You cannot rely on the armor. As a sniper, it can do so in a pinch. But again, with a 0.40 accuracy, it is very challenging. Everything else has pretty decent numbers for long range firing, but again, the accuracy is not going to be there. Also, there are times that you will end up being the role of kind of your typical moving around medium, where you have to, well, kind of take the place of a light tank and do some spotting and that sort of thing. So you will be on your feet there. So it's a very diverse tank. But when tanks or any other pieces of equipment are diverse and work well enough in multiple roles, usually they are not specialized in any one particular role. So I find this tank, in my opinion, to be a well-rounded tank, but it's not specialized in any one particular area. When it comes to movement, once you get up to speed, it does have a pretty decent traveling speed, or a top-end speed. It's responsive, but the acceleration is just a little lacking. Nothing against the tank, but just kind of a fact to take into consideration, that you are not going to have that light tank, or in some cases, some mediums feel that very fast forward and backwards kind of maneuvering, like say the Knight, or Cromwell. Something along those lines. It's a little more sluggish, there's a lot of weight, and just keep that in mind when you're playing this tank. Again, being the American style of tank, using the gun depression, staying hull down, kind of similar to peeking up and over a hill, that sort of thing. Use this tank to its advantages, and it's going to come out pretty well for you. Again, be supportive, and do not take the front line unless you absolutely have to. Alright, so we spent a few moments talking about how to play this tank. We've talked about the stats, we've talked about how it was once sold and it's sold again, and that sort of thing. What we have not discussed is one of the aspects that I find so appealing in World of Tanks, and specifically with this particular tank, is that this tank was a real part of history. It goes well beyond the fact that it was in a movie. This particular tank, being the M4A3E8, with the title Fury, was a very integral part of World War II. And because it is linked to the movie, it is kind of interesting to kind of take apart and look specifically at the fact that, were this to be in real life, there's a high likelihood that the EZ8 would not have been the tank that was shown in the movie, based on real historical situations, and they would not have been fighting a Tiger T1. But that's another story for another time. Now, according to the story, these guys have been fighting since North Africa in 1942. That being the case, the logic would dictate that the Model M4 Sherman, like a M2 or an M4A3, would be something that would have been in production in 1942. So on top of that, being that it was 1942, being 3.5 years later when this movie is taking place, this type of tank, the M2 or the M4, having survived that long is pretty much unheard of. In fact, based on what I can come across, the fact is that only one Sherman tank, a Canadian one, was ever known to have survived as long as from June 1944's D-Day, all the way up to May 1945's victory over Europe Day. Now, if anything that I'm sharing with you is wrong, please absolutely take the moment to correct me in the discussion below. But I'm just sharing with you the information that I came across. Another interesting fact is that the EZ-8, which was equipped, of course, with a 76mm gun, was in real life a late addition to the war, and it only came into production late in 1944. So when they're depicted in the movie as being at the mercy of the German tanks, it was challenging, absolutely. But the EZ-8 featured a bigger gun and a better suspension, so they weren't as worse off as, say, in an M4. Another interesting thing too is, remember we were talking about the engine that this particular tank has in the game, and it being a Ford engine. Interesting fun fact is that the Ford Motor Company did not design the Sherman tank, but it did build them. It was one of the the mighty manufacturing resources for the United States. But here's the thing: the tanks built by Ford were only built at a number of 1,690 M4A3s from June 1942 to September 1943. So in all, about 50,000 were built for the war, and the vast majority of Shermans were built by General Motors and Chrysler. So if you have a Ford-built, Sherman, it was a very, very rare tank indeed. Continuing on with this kind of fun fact, the Ford's 450 horsepower, 18-liter GAA V8 engine, by the way, originally started as a V12, which was a copy of the Rolls-Royce Merlin and Allison aviation engines. And it was in the beginning was going to be used. They're trying to sell it as an engine for an American plane, but the Navy turned them down. They didn't get the contract for the Ford V12, and so what Ford did is they went ahead and just chopped it down and lopped off 4 cylinders, and they converted it into a tank engine. So the specific tank that we're looking at here, the Fury, was from the Bovington Tank Museum, the actual real tank used in the movie. In fact, there were 10 of the M4A3 E8s used in the movie, and they all came from the same museum. If you were to go to the museum and look for the serial number T224875, that would be the specific exact tank called the Fury in the movie. Now, additionally, the filmmakers needed, of course, the opposition, and what they did was they used a German 131, or the Tiger 131, which is the only surviving working order Tiger 131 in known existence, and that was also located at the same museum. And for the record, the German Tiger 1 was out of production by 1945. And to round out the historical significance of these tanks, the Tiger was definitely a feared machine. However, it was over-engineered, had a lot of challenges with it. Conversely, with the American Shermans, they were able to be very maneuverable, very reliable, and quick on the draw, the faster rate of fire. And we were just able to, or I should say the Americans were able to just manufacture so many of them. Really just comes down to that, the Germans definitely did, as an individual tank is concerned, they had a far superior tank, and it was a much closer race in the beginning of the war. But as the war progressed, the German technology just advanced immensely. What they weren't able to keep up with was simply the concept of manufacturing, not unlike the ability of Russians to crank out so many units. And that, in the end, was one of the big things that put Germany at a disadvantage. All right, folks, so that's pretty much kind of bringing it full circle, if you want to be a part of history. Some of these tanks, like I said before, have been only on paper. Maybe were just prototypes, mock-ups. Some of them actually participated in history itself, and that's, for me, part of the allure of this game. Pretty neat. This tank, rather, the E8, the Fury, not only was it in a movie, so big whoop-de-doo if that floats your boat, but also, too, and more importantly, it was a part of history, and so it's a lot of fun. When it comes to this game, I think it's a pretty nice premium for a pretty decent price. It doesn't break the bank too badly, and it's a pretty good crew trainer, and like I said, a lot of fun. And it's very capable as a fighter, both at top tier and even, as you can see here, in a tier 8 game. Just remember what we discussed about how to play this tank, remembering that this thing is not a brawler and it's not a sniper. It's kind of an in-between all-around tank, and you're going to emphasize and push its limits based on the situation. I played completely different in the tier 6 game than I did in this particular tier 8 game. Either way, though, I did pretty well. Was able to make a pretty decent profit, as you can see there, with no bonuses. That's just straight profit. And I was running some premium consumables, as well as some premium ammunition. So 22 pens, mastery, 55,000 plus, and of course you're getting the benefit of having fun and training your crews, so worked out pretty well. Not too bad for a tier 8 game. So would I recommend this tank? Again, as usual, I'm not going to tell you what to get and what not to get. I enjoy it a lot. I think it's a great tank. If you like the E8, you're going to like the Fury because they are so similar, which is one of the beauties of this particular premium tank. Folks, I'm really appreciating you subscribing, sticking around to watch this thing, sharing it with your friends, and by all means, please continue to let me know what you like and what you don't like so I can continue to make our channel even better. Thank you much, guys, and I will catch you later. Now, where did my crew go off to? Oh, I see. There they are. Okay, girls, tell them who they are if they're receiving this transmission.
You are one of the 47 Ronin. Thanks for watching. I'll catch you later.